Have you ever been around a child or perhaps an employee or coworker who was asked to do something that they didn't want to do and they did it anyway? And you know that body language that is it me? It's me. Hang on. Oh, hello. There we go. That body language that they have, right? It's disgruntled. It's the deep sigh. It's the head down. It's the anger. It's all that stuff that you see, and then they go and they do it. But you know what happens in that moment? The activity itself, the person that was asked to do it, the person that asked did the asking, and then also the completed work, none of it is filled with joy or enthusiasm. It's not a blessing really to anyone. And we know that our thoughts carry our energy, right? So when our thoughts are carrying our energy into the activities of our lives, and that energy is negative and disgruntled and unhappy and so forth, that's what we're carrying into those activities. If you're familiar with the old prosperity principle about blessing your bills, anybody familiar with that? Where, that APS bill comes in July and you kind of go, oh. And rather than fussing about it and being unhappy about it, we find gratitude for the fact that we had the power and we had cool homes and power for our entertainment and so forth in our homes. And then when we were writing out our check, again, rather than being disgruntled about it, blessing that and knowing that that is circulating our good into the APS, who circulates it to their employees, who then circulate it into the world and their lives and so forth and so on. So it can be a very expansive time of gratitude for us, right? So today we're going to be wrapping up our series. We've been talking all month about living our lessons of the science of mind teaching. We learn about our principles and practices and so forth within the science of mind with the universal laws and so on. And then we want to learn to apply those into our life. So that's the idea of learning our lessons. Today, my talk is the fifth pillar of living a spiritual life. The fifth pillar of living a spiritual life. Now, you may be thinking, now, Reverend Jill, you didn't tell us the other four. Now, how can you start with number 5? Well, the fact is that you know all of these pretty well because this is what we teach. So I'll give you a quick review of the first 4. Number 1, study. Number 1 pillar, first pillar is study, and it expands our understanding. It expands our understanding through our reading, through study, through investigation, through reflection. You see it with our classes. We have our class coming up here next week, or 2 weeks actually, and we read spiritual materials. We have a bookstore. We have a lending library. We have book study on Tuesday evenings. These are ways that we expand our consciousness through study. The second pillar is prayer. You heard Daniel deliver a beautiful, beautiful affirmative prayer treatment this morning. And prayer is an act of communion with the divine. Prayer is when we're active. We're having a conversation, if you will, with the divine. We're active in that. And here we teach affirmative prayer. We teach affirmative prayer affirmations. And you hear every Sunday the multitude of ways in which you can receive prayer through this community, either in person, through a written request, through the internet, phone call, lots and lots of different ways. The third pillar is meditation. Meditation increases our awareness or our consciousness of the divine. It expands us into greater understanding of our relationship with the divine. And we do that through contemplation or focus or just time in the silence. And we do that every Sunday morning, 9:30, right here in the room. We have about 20 minutes of a little guided and silent meditation, open to everyone, that you can come and participate in that spiritual practice. The fourth one is circulation. The fourth pillar, circulation, encourages right relationship of the flow of life through us. It's understanding the balance of giving and receiving. And this next month, we're going to be talking a lot about prosperity. We do every October. It's our month where we focus on prosperity and abundance and the principles that we teach in metaphysics and science of mind. And we do the spiritual practice every week through our tithes and offering, the circulation of our good in service each week. So we practice that. So that's the 4. I told you were familiar with all those, right? You know that's what we do. The 5th one is seva. The 5th one is seva. Seva is a Sanskrit word for selfless service. Selfless service. And this is the practice of serving others without expectation of reward or a specific result. Lots of opportunities to serve in our center. We're a volunteer army, as they say. So seva is a spiritual practice that is intended to expand our consciousness through giving without any expectation of reward or praise. How does that sit? Sounds simple, yes? Sounds really simple. Oh, yeah. But is it? How many times have you felt unappreciated for your help? Unacknowledged for something that you did? Maybe it's as simple as you held a door open for someone and they didn't even have the common courtesy to say thank you. Happens, doesn't it? When we are willing to be vulnerable, to put ourselves out there and do a service, a kindness perhaps for another person, and they don't respond the way we think they should. So what do? We might turn around and judge them, huh? You ever heard someone that, the door is held open and they walk through and they don't even acknowledge it, and the person that's holding the door goes, "Thank you." Yeah, those are the kinds of things that happen. And that's our mind, our humanness, our mind getting in the way of our being in seva. Our mind might say things like, "What am I going to get out of this? Why should I do this thing? Why do I always have to be the one to do this thing?" And again, we judge them if they don't appreciate us or acknowledge us for doing that service. My dad used to say, didn't say kiss my foot or anything. I always knew he was judging someone. But that's the hurdle of our minds. That is the hurdle of our minds that we have to get over to move from simply volunteering in some aspect of our lives to seva, the spiritual practice of seva. And it's in the mind, right? It's in the way we think about things that we have to get over those hurdles. Our mind, our ego believes that we should be rewarded for our actions. That's part of our conditioning, isn't it? Give and take, back and forth. I work a day job, and if I went and worked that day job and didn't get a compensation back for it, I don't know if I'd keep doing it, right? I don't know if I'd keep doing it. Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living, I get to do both. I get compensated for some of my work, but then I'm in seva for a lot of my work. A lot of my work is simply giving with no expectation of return, because that's my call. That is my calling. That's what I'm here to do. It's the giving of God. If you think about how Spirit gives to us, some of the old teachings had a tendency to teach us that we had to beg and worship and plead and be grateful and all of that. Spirit just gives. It's automatic. Spirit is giving with no expectation of worship, adoration, or anything. It just gives. It cannot help itself but to give and to create of itself. That's what it does. That's what we call love, the self-givingness of Spirit to its creation. And so this is the idea of seva, is giving as God gives without expectation. So as I thought about this week, I began to think of seva as more of a gift, reframing it a bit in the mind as a gift. You remember anybody was here last Christmas time, and we began collecting toys for the Scottsdale Fire Department, supporting Toys for Tots, the Marine thing. Remember that? Many of us participated in that. We had a big tree. We had tons of toys under the tree. It was a very festive and fun time. We had no idea which child would receive our gift, did we? No clue whatsoever. We didn't receive a thank you note for that gift. We didn't even have the delight of seeing their exuberant smiles and faces on Christmas morning when they opened it. It was a gift of love. It was a gift of the heart. It was a gift of service to another human being on our planet. It was a gift of selfless service. So you heard me mention kindness a few minutes ago, and as I thought this week and played with these ideas, this idea of service, I kept hearing kindness, kindness, kindness. So I went to the dictionary. It's like, okay, what's the difference in kindness and service? How do these work? Kindness is a quality of being. Friendly, generous, considerate. Service is an action of helping or doing. So we have kindness as a quality of being, and then we have service as an activity, an action of helping, doing for another. When we add the word selfless in front of service, which means, of course, that we are more concerned with the needs and wishes of others than with ourselves, we end up with seva. We end up with seva, selfless service, without expectation or reward. But I don't know about you, but my experience of life is that most of the doingness in our lives is for the purpose of self-advancement in some way. We're either learning, growing, expanding, maybe feeding our ego in some cases. We do things because people will think better of us if we're doing those things. So there's a lot of reasons and rewards in our service sometimes. We all know the old acronym WIIFM, what's in it for me? And that is applicable to much of our lives. We are motivated by things that are good for us. That also, maybe it's the win-win. We talk about that in our spiritual teaching, that we always go for the win-win. It's good for me and it's good for you. And if you remember a few weeks ago, Reverend Lee was talking about the paradox of spiritual living. And when we look even at the 5 pillars, we have circulation teaching us giving and receiving and the balance of that. And then we have seva, that's all giving. There's a paradox there even in those 5 pillars, isn't there? So there's always that paradox that we get to dance with in our spirituality. So when we practice seva, we're entering the spiritual realm. That's truly what seva is about, is entering the spiritual realm, the realm of the divine and giving as God gives. I think of it as doing in a being state of mind. I can see that on a t-shirt. Doing in a being state of mind. We shift our focus from the results of the activity that we're doing into the beingness of the activity. Who am I being as I do this? What are my thoughts as I do this? Am I focused on what I'm going to accomplish? Or am I focused on just the activity of doing it? Some of the Buddhist teachings and things teach us the Zen and the art of the tea service. It's all about giving. It's all about giving. And that's what we're talking about with seva. And this idea of shifting into the state of being, the givingness of God, is the key difference between spiritual service over other ways that we may serve and volunteer in our communities. We're going to be practicing getting completely present with the activity and the action rather than those results. The consciousness of seva, if you think about it, it's all about mindfulness and non-attachment. Being mindful and present in the moment and non-attached to the outcome. Is that challenging for anybody else in this room except me? Yeah? Yeah. We're not wired that way, are we? In the secular world, we are not wired that way. That's why our spiritual practices can be so empowering for us when we can move into gratitude instead of judgment, when we can move into seva instead of give and take sort of transactions in our lives, when we can move to our spiritual practices, we can live a much more balanced, joy-filled life. So seva is as a way for us to do that and practice mindfulness and practice non-attachment. And while we're in service, there are some questions that we can use to bring ourselves back to being present in that moment. What am I thinking right now? As I'm working, as I'm doing this activity, what am I thinking right now? What am I thinking about? Am I thinking about what I'm actually doing? Am I thinking about where I'm going after this? Am I thinking about how it's impacting the person I'm doing it for? What am I thinking about in this moment? Am I being mindful of where I am? Who am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? If I'm going to go down on Thanksgiving morning, give up my holiday and go serve food to the homeless at the shelter, I can't wait to get out of there and tell all of my friends and all of my acquaintances how I gave up and sacrificed my day. Who am I doing this for? Am I doing this for my ego? Or am I doing this for the people that I am in service to in that moment? Those are the questions, the deeper questions we get to ask ourselves when we want to go into a practice of seva. And I'm not discounting any other volunteer services or anything, because that's all necessary and all good. And giving in that manner is fine. But if you want to practice seva, I'm going to suggest that you do it from a more mindful perspective of who are you serving. Are you serving that individual right in front of you? Are you being there for them? What is the highest quality I can embrace in this moment? Can I find gratitude in this moment? Being in service, spending my time, can I find gratitude in this moment for being in service to this person? For sitting here in this most boring environment on the planet while this lady sleeps. I'm sitting here taking care of her and watching her and just spending time with her, but she's sleeping. I could be doing 100 million other. Who are we serving? What are we doing? Am I the only one that has a crazy mind that works that way? Thank you, William. William's going, yeah. It's human nature, right? It's human nature. Seva is a different practice. Seva is truly a spiritual practice of stepping into the divinity of who we are and giving to each other as the oneness that we are and letting go of all the rest of it. Jumping over that hurdle of the ego mind and just opening our hearts and giving of our true spiritual self, giving from the heart to the heart. Let's go back to our experience of last year. If you participated in the Toys for Tots, what were you thinking when you were shopping? I heard so many comments that, oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I had so much fun buying these toys and bringing them in and putting them under the tree and all of that energy. And it was so much fun. Do you remember what you were thinking when you were in the store? What were you thinking? Or maybe you were participating in the back to school backpack program that we did with the city of Scottsdale. I heard similar comments. Oh, it was so much fun. I had so much fun buying these school supplies and backpacks for these kids. And we had a huge pile in the entryway. Colette took them over down to the schools and stuff. So it's, it was wonderful. But what were you thinking when you were buying that pencil, that backpack? What were you thinking? Those of you who are in sacred service here in our center, what are you thinking? What are you thinking when you're in service to Scottsdale CSL? Is it a gift? Is it a burden? Oh gosh, I gotta go today. I gotta run the camera again. What are you thinking? That's important because like we said in the very beginning, Our thoughts carry our energy into that activity. Is it a gift or is it a burden? For me, I check in frequently on my service here because that's my calling. And I ask myself, is this still my calling? And I get a very resounding yes, this is still my calling. And, I don't feel burdened by it. I do feel that it's a gift. I feel overwhelmed sometimes. I will admit to that. But it's not a burden. And I do feel that my seva here, my service here, is a gift. And I am answering a higher call. And that's, again, that idea of seva for you as well. We all have a calling in life, right? We all have a calling. Living a spiritual life in the world today can be challenging a little bit. Not everybody can retire to a mountaintop and spend all day in spiritual practice, although it sounds wonderful sometimes. Our mission here, though, is to provide manageable options that you can begin to apply in your life, that you can apply these spiritual practices. And our hope is that you can find a permanent spot for them in your daily life so that they can become a part of who you are, a part of what you do. What we do know is that through regular application of these practices, you may begin to realize that you really already are living a spiritual life. Let's move to our practicing the principles this week and see how we can practice seva in our lives. I'll give you a couple of hints, a couple of things to maybe try. Number one is move from doing to being. We talk about the activity that we want to be in a being state as opposed to focusing on the doing state. The biggest difference in the spiritual practice of seva and volunteering is the awareness of our state of mind while we're doing the activity. Awareness of our state of mind while we're doing the activity rather than the results that we hope to accomplish by doing that activity. We focus on the quality of our being in that moment. Who am I being in this moment as I'm picking up my neighbor's dog poo in their backyard for them? I'm coming up with crazy examples just to help us to think, okay? Who am I being in this moment? Who am I being? This week, pick an activity with an intention of practicing seva. Write down your questions that will keep you focused and refer to them frequently. Some of those might be, what am I thinking right now? What am I thinking right now? What am I thinking right now? Who am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? Am I doing this for myself? Am I doing it for the person that is receiving it? Am I doing it because I have to? Somebody's forcing me to do this? Who am I doing this for? Am I doing or being? Am I caught up in the how? Or am I caught up in being? What is the highest quality that I can embrace right now? Can I move to gratitude? Can I move to love? Can I be joyful? What is the highest quality I can embrace right now? Those are just some examples. You can create your own questions to presence you in the moment as you do your service. I invite you to record your results and always remember, of course, practice makes perfect. So you can do it more than once. Number two is practicing non-attachment, the mindfulness and the non-attachment. And there are many ways that we can become attached to service. Think about that. Who we like to work with. I don't work with those people. I work with these people. I don't work with that team. Our preferred work style. Oh, no, you got to be there at 7 o'clock. I'm not coming in. No, you got to be there at 7. You don't want to be there at 7. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it at 7 o'clock, not 9. The style, the process. Oh, no, we've always done it this way. We've always done it this way. And the way we do things, the results we expect, got to finish it in 1 hour. And I want to make sure that we get it done in this way, and it has to look just like this. That's how we get tangled up in it, isn't it? My way, I did it my way, right? We get tangled up in that stuff when it's not about that stuff at all. What it's about is being present to whatever is, being present to whatever is, and allowing that to flow through us. When any of these processes are changed, we can experience disappointment, impatience, frustration, maybe even anger. In our seva, it's no longer seva, is it? If anyone suffers with, if you want it done right, gotta do it yourself. Anybody suffers from that, this might be a good week to practice letting that go also. Letting that go also. Practice not being attached to any aspect of an activity of service. Focus on being open to whatever comes along. Kind of rolling with it. Oh, they're not doing it my way. I would have done it that way, but you know what? It's not about that. It's not about the doing. Who am I being in this moment? Am I being upset because they're not doing it my way? Am I being unkind because they're not doing it my way? Am I insisting they do it my way? Or can I just be? Can I just be? Release your expectations of how it must be done and what it will accomplish. That's a hard practice because we're used to doing it a certain way, aren't we? And to be in service to another is not necessarily that experience. Givingness to God, opening our heart and giving. Practice mindful unattachment. Number 3, move from obligation to oneness. My sweet mama cooked dinner 7 nights a week for, I don't know, 60 years of her marriage. And I remember her frequently just being so upset that she had to prepare dinner again. She got bored with the meal selection. She was not real creative. We lived in a tiny town. We didn't have a lot of money, so we rarely, if ever, went out to eat. If we did, it was usually to a relative's house. And we always cooked and took something with us. So there you go. So she was not in a service or seva sort of mindset frequently in preparing those meals. She was pretty unhappy about it. It felt like a duty. It was not an act of love and service to her family. When we do from obligation, it's no longer a gift, is it? It's no longer a gift at that point. It's a duty. And seva is all about selfless giving. So whenever you feel like you're facing a duty, an assignment that is a duty to do a certain activity, in that moment when you feel those feelings, pause and ask. Reframe. Look at it differently. How can I make this an act of service in oneness to the oneness that I am? This being is one in the one just like I am. How can I make this a service as opposed to a duty and an obligation? It's going to take some reframing. It's going to take some focus. It's going to take some attention to look at that and reframe that situation. It might be as simple as holding open a door. And as you do that, catch yourself, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I was raised to be a polite person? Or am I doing this as an act of service to this human being to hold the door for them as a kindness, as a service to them? Why am I doing it? Is it an automatic reaction? Or am I truly mindful in this moment of doing it? And my non-attachment is to not expect them to say thank you or acknowledge it in any way. That's a simple act of seva that you can practice this week. And catch yourself in and see if how you feel if they don't acknowledge you or if they won't let you get the door. That could happen too, right? I've got it. Ways that we can practice. When we can elevate our awareness to see all of our actions and activities as service in the one, we begin to understand what Jesus was talking about when he said the truth will set you free. Because that truth is our oneness. That's the truth he's teaching us. The truth that we are one will set us free. Giving to our communities, our families, our friends, this community, the center, those are all definite ways that we can practice seva in our lives. And here in our community, we gratefully accept all gifts of time, talent, and treasure. We couldn't do it without you. I've said that before, and I'll continue to say that. We cannot do it without you. Your time as a volunteer in our community is absolutely invaluable. Your talent, William and Carl on the video, Joe in marketing, the talents that they bring us are irreplaceable. As a small community of our size, we could not afford the professional experience that these gentlemen bring to our community. It's absolutely irreplaceable. The treasure that you share with us, whether it is your donations of money, help us keep the doors open, whether it's donations of furniture, we've received desks and chairs, whether it's your books into the lending library, keeping the refrigerator stocked with water, the multitude of things that you do, materials, and just all of the things that you do here. We're just such grateful receivers for all of that. And if I ever forget to say thank you, please know my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for all that you give, gave, continue to give, will give in the future. Sometimes it takes my breath away, your generosity and your kindness. And sometimes I might forget to say thank you, but it doesn't mean my heart's not cracked open because of it. So thank you. In closing, Gandhi reminds us that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. What would you like to give? What would you like to give? Would you join me in a prayer, please? How good it is that we can go within in recognition of the one power, the one presence, the one life. And as we recognize this is God. It is the source of all that is. It creates of itself. It loves so much that it continues to create of itself, giving of itself to the creation. And we are that creation. We are manifestations of this one life, this one power, this one presence, this one source. There's only one substance, and we are created of it as well. And we therefore are that love. We are that givingness. We are that service, one to the other. As God gives to us, we give to each other. And so knowing this, I speak my word today for and about each of us, recognizing the divinity of who we are as infinite spirits in form, expressing uniquely in our individualized ways. And yet knowing that in this oneness, in this unity that we share, we are love at such a deep level. And while we may have allowed borders and boundaries and barriers to come up between us, when we can strip that away, we can open our hearts, truly see each other's light, embrace it, and be one in unity and in wholeness. Giving is so easy. Being of service, seva, selfless giving, heart to heart. How blessed I am for this knowing that this is the truth that sets us free, knowing our uniqueness and our oneness and our wholeness in God. I know for anyone this day that has anything on their hearts that they seek prayer around, as they lift it into the consciousness of this room, we hold these beloveds in our light and in our love, knowing for them the full manifestation of their prayer in this moment. whether that is a prayer of healing, a prayer of release, a prayer of love, a prayer of abundance and circulation. Whatever that prayer is for, we recognize the manifestation of it right here, right now, as we collectively hold it, lift it, and know the truth and manifestation of it. And how grateful I am for this community, for this prayerfulness, for the high watch that we all hold for each other and for this community and for our world. For we are the light carriers. So it is from a deep well of gratitude that I release this prayer into the action of law, activity of mind, knowing that it is already done, it is already made manifest. We simply await its expression in form, for it comes from the formless into form, in, through, and as our lives now. We release, we let go, and we affirm together. And so it is.